All right, let's see how luminosity masks can help us create more impact with this image. This is a portrait of three tea workers. We're going to go ahead and set up some data layers for our highlights, our shadows, and our midtones. I've gone in and selected the highlights in the RGB channel, and I'll go ahead and turn that into a highlights channel. I'll deselect the highlights so that I can just work with this entire channel layer. I'll duplicate the channel, call it shadows, and then on the shadow layer I'm going to invert the data so everything that's black becomes white and everything that's white becomes black, therefore giving me an accurate map of what are the shadow tones of this image. Do that by inverting Command I. So now everything that's white in this data map is dark in the image. Okay, so that's the shadows. Now let's get some midtones. The midtones we can get by intersecting the white data points from the highlights with the white data points from the shadows. So I'll select the highlights first, and then I will use Command Option Shift click to intersect with the shadows. The result is my midtone channel. Okay, so if I take a look at these three different maps, I can see that there's a fair amount of highlights, which is good. There are a lot of shadows. There's a lot of data on the left side of the histogram. And then I've got, a fair amount of midtone information. So there's plenty of tones from all the ranges. Now we want to see what we can do about creating some impact in the image. So I'll click select the highlights, and then click on RGB so that I can see the actual image. Go back to layers. I think we'll start with some split toning on this image. I'm going to take the, this is kind of a direction with some potential, sort of a washout. Possibly a washout of the highlights. Let's just see where this goes here. Take these shadows, select the shadows, go back to the image, go to layers. I think with the shadows I want to, let's bring a little cooling. And with the midtones, let's try some warming. put all this work in a group so that I can toggle and take a look. This is a start. I think it will, I'll have to make a decision based on, a couple other images. Maybe there's a series that I'm putting together. But here you can see we can actually now go in and make some changes here. In particular, with the washout, I'm going to adjust this mask, and I'm going to set my foreground color to black because I'm going to reduce the washout in the clothing. I just want the washout to happen in the background. I want the plants to be a little bit less green, and of course I could do that here by just reducing the screen, but I like what this adjustment is doing by screening this gray wash into it. It's actually making these foreground elements of these portrait subjects a little bit more readable. Like I see more detail in the hair, and that makes them not so much caving in on their own color density. So I'm appreciating that. But I want to bring a little bit of color back into their clothes. So let's lower my brush power. Go to the mask. And just for kicks, because I see so much of this diagonal motion, I'm going to actually brush in negative mask some of these bits of color more dramatically. Okay. Then, let's see, this was my highlight wash. Take a look at the shadow coloring. The shadow coloring, I'm going to bring a little bit of, I'm going to recover some of this. So I'm going to dial back the shadow coloring on the faces in particular. So again, I'm going to use the mask to hide the mask work. In particular around the eyes. Turn the flow up a little bit. Okay. So again, I'm actually bringing the resetting the mask just in these shadow areas of the faces, to give a little bit more dimension to the face, or bring back that dimension. Okay, this is what it looks like. And the midtones, they add a little bit of intensity. Let's see what happens if I bring that in a little bit more. I might even double it. Okay. All right. So there we have it. Here's the original, and here's the edit. I've retained, the overall sense of color and tone, but you can see what's happened in this edit. I've taken some of the continuity of saturation and color density, and I've broken that up a little bit. So I'm getting these portrait figures to stand out a little bit more, both in relation to their environment and then in relation to themselves. All right, there you have it.